The sky replacement tool in Photoshop uses AI, artificial intelligence, to easily replace skies. In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into the sky replacement, and I'm going to show you what every single control and slider does. Then I'm going to show you how to use the sky replacement to swap skies on video and how to do day to night transformations using the sky replacement. This is going to be an information-packed tutorial, so make sure that you stick around into the very end. Why don't we jump right into it? The first step is to select your layer and go into Edit, Sky Replacement. This will bring up the brand new sky replacement window. Photoshop will use artificial intelligence known as Adobe Sensei to automatically find the sky and replace it with whatever image you have selected in the sky dropdown. If you click on this dropdown, you'll be able to see all the skies that Photoshop comes with. And up here, you'll have a list of the recent skies that you have applied. If you don't want to see that list, just click on this gear icon and uncheck Show Recent. I like having the recent skies enabled, so I'll keep it enabled. There's three categories: blue sky, spectacular, and sunset. And of course, you can add your own, and I'm going to show you how to do that, so make sure that you stick around for that. But you can just open a category and select a sky, and Photoshop will automatically replace that sky and make some adjustments so that the sky matches the foreground. To make things easier to see, I'm going to select this sky from the spectacular category. I already have it on my recents list, so I'll select it from there. I'll click away to close the dropdown, and now let's look at the Shift Edge and Fade Edge sliders. These sliders control what will become the mask in the sky replacement layer. I'll start by dragging the Shift Edge to -100 so that we can better see what this is controlling. And you can see that the original sky comes back. This is what this gray halo is. That's the original sky. And what this is doing is moving the sky edge, whatever Photoshop determined to be the sky, and expanding it outward. And I can bring it in like so. And obviously you have to fine tune this accordingly. I'll leave it at -100 just so that we can see what the fade edge slider controls. This is the feathering or the blurring of that edge. If I bring it down to 0, notice now that the edges are much sharper. At 100, they're very soft. So what you need to do is fine tune the edge accordingly so that you don't see much of the original background. So in this case, I can bring the fade edge down and shift the edge up. Something like that seems to work okay. In some cases, you are going to need to get your hands dirty and start painting over your image to get the results that you want. And you will do that with the sky brush. You can click on it to enable it, and you either have the plus icon enabled or the minus icon enabled. Let's start with the minus. Remember, this is the sky brush, so we're affecting the sky. So if I wanted to subtract the sky from my foreground, this is what I will do. Paint away areas where I don't want the sky to be. For example, the door. If I paint on the door, notice that the door comes back to its original color. This will eventually become a layer mask. And what we're really doing here is painting with black on that layer mask. Remember, black hides, so we're hiding the sky, and white reveal, so we will reveal the sky. So where do we want to reveal the sky? Well, there might be some areas here on this tree where the original sky is coming through. So I would add the new sky that we're replacing. So I'm clicking on this plus icon on the sky brush to add the sky in these areas. And what I'll do now, so that you can see what I'm doing, is I'll shift the edge down again. And when I paint, you can see that I'm adding the new sky and taking away from the old one. But we don't really need to do all that. In this case, we're getting great results just by using the shift edge. You just have to analyze your image and paint away on areas that the artificial intelligence didn't quite get. And you can just bring the sky in manually on those areas like so. All the controls that we've looked at so far will generate a layer called sky, which will contain a layer mask. And that layer mask will apply the sky layer onto your photo. And before we continue, I would like to mention that I was interviewed at the He Shoots, He Draws podcast. I'm wearing the shirt they gave me now. It's a podcast by my good friends Dave Clayton and Alan Hess. Make sure that you check out the interview. It was recorded about 2 weeks ago. I'll place the link below in the description. But anyway, back to the tutorial. Next, let's look at the sky adjustments. Click on the arrow to expand the panel. These sliders will control the sky that you selected from this dropdown. And keep in mind that these sliders will become adjustment layers when we output to new layers. The brightness slider will become a brightness and contrast adjustment layer, and it controls the brightness of the sky. The temperature slider will become a color balance adjustment layer, and it controls how cool or warm the sky is. Next, you have the scale and flip checkbox. The scale slider controls the size of your sky image. You can drag it to the right to make it larger. Then you can select the move tool and click and drag to reposition the image. And to flip the image horizontally, you can click on the checkbox. This will allow you to match the light direction in the scene. Next, let's talk about the foreground adjustments, which of course control the foreground image. First, we have the lighting mode. You can either select multiply to darken the foreground or screen to brighten it. This is actually the blending mode that will be applied to the pixel layer that will be generated by the lighting adjustment slider below. The lighting adjustment slider will darken or brighten the main background image where it blends with the new sky. On output, this slider will create a gray pixel layer with highlights and shadows which will blend with the original background by using the blending mode you selected above. Then below that, you'll see the color adjustment slider, which on output would generate a curves adjustment layer, and it's meant to harmonize the colors in the foreground to match the background. There's two tools that I haven't mentioned, but I think they're very self-explanatory. We have the hand tool, which allows you to pan on your image, and the zoom tool, which allows you to zoom in. Now it's time to output our sky replacement. To keep everything editable, make sure that you output to new layers and press OK. And in this group, you'll find the layers that Photoshop generated to create the sky replacement. Notice the layer mask on this sky layer. This was generated by using the values in the shift edge and fade edge sliders alongside the manual adjustments that you made with the sky brush. If you hold Alt on Windows Option on the Mac and click on the layer mask, you can see what the mask looks like. Black conceals, white reveals, so the white areas will reveal the new sky and the black areas will hide the new sky. If you need to edit your layer mask, this works like any other layer mask. So I'll select the lasso tool and I can click and drag and fill with black so that the sky does not come through in those areas. Control backspace, Command delete on the Mac to fill with my background color, which is black. In this case, I'm not going to spend time fine-tuning the mask, but you can definitely do that in your projects. Once again, I'll hold Alt on Windows Option on the Mac and click on the layer mask icon to bring back the original pixels. Now let's talk about the layers that are included in this sky replacement. So I'm going to click and drag down to disable the layers, and we'll look at the layers one at a time. We have the original background image. We have this foreground color layer that applies that harmonizing color to the sky. Then we have this layer, the one created by the lighting adjustment slider, the one that we set to multiply. Then we have the sky with the layer mask that we just looked at. Then we have this color balance adjustment layer that applies the sky temperature. And we have this brightness adjustment layer, which obviously controls the brightness of the sky. And that's what makes up our sky replacement. It does a very good job, and obviously the more time that you spend fine-tuning the image, the better results you'll get. Next, let's look at how you can import your own skies. Once again, go into the edit menu and select sky replacement. So there's two ways of bringing skies in, and they're not the same. So first, I'll mention the one that we're not going to use. If you click on this gear icon, you can click on import skies. And this will bring up this window that is meant for you to import skies with the new .sky file type that Photoshop uses for this panel. I actually have a sky set for you with the two files that we're going to use today. You can download them from my website. I'll place a link below in the description, but this is how you will bring in that set. Now, instead of bringing in the set, what I'm going to do is instead click on this plus icon. And from here, you can import JPEGs, PNGs, and other types of images. You cannot do that from the gear icon, so that's very important to remember. And I'm going to bring in two skies. First, this alien sky, which is a composite inspired by the movie Star Wars. Some of you may recognize the Tatooine-like sky with two suns. I think this sky would look better if we flip it, so I'll click on the flip checkbox. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that you can even use a composite as your image for the sky replacement. Next, I'm going to import this night sky, which will allow you to easily make day to night transformations. Remember, both of these images are available for you to download so that you can use them in your projects. The link is in the description. Let's start with the alien sky first. I'll try to match it to my foreground. I'll move it up, maybe scale it a bit. Then I'll shift my edge inward and reduce the fade and just make this match as best as possible. In this case, I think that I need more of the color adjustment for the foreground. I'll increase it, and this looks pretty good. I'll press OK, and now I have my Tatooine-like sky in this photo. Again, the link to this image is below in the description. Download it if you like. Next, let me show you how you can use the sky replacement to create day to night transformations. First, let's use adjustment layers to try to make this into a night photo. I'll start by adding a color lookup adjustment layer. And from this drop down, you have both moonlight and night from day, and these give you decent results when you want to make an image seem like it's night, but there's always a lot of adjustment and fine tuning that you have to do. For example, after I do that, I like to select the background layer, go into the hue and saturation adjustment layer, and bring the hue down so that the original colors are not popping through as much. If that doesn't give me the results that I want, I will go up above the color lookup adjustment layer, select a curves adjustment layer, and darken the darkest pixels, and click on the bright pixels and drag down to darken them as well. And just give it the right amount of contrast. Now in this case, things are looking pretty good, but they're still not looking realistic, and that's because the sky didn't really change. So we need to bring in a night sky to make this effect more realistic. So what I'll do is I'll select that top layer, hold Shift, click on the bottom layer, then press Control G on Windows, Command G on the Mac, and put that into a group. I'll call the group Night Effect. And next, I can select the background layer. I'll disable the Night Effect group, and with my background layer selected, I'll go into Edit, Sky Replacement, and I'll select that night sky that I imported just a moment ago, and I can increase the shift edge to reduce the edge halos, and I'll reduce the feathering like so. In this case, we will need to use the sky brush to paint in the sky in these areas where the halos are very strong. So let me just paint the sky into these areas like so. And again, I'm going fairly quickly, but do spend your time in your projects and you'll get better results. I'll also paint the sky back in this area. Then I'm going to subtract the sky from the door and from the house like so, and also from the grass here as well. And you don't have to be precise. As you can see, I'm going fairly quickly, but I will get good results. Okay, I think this is looking pretty good. I'm going to open up the sky adjustments, and maybe I'll brighten the sky a little bit, and I'll make it just a little bit cooler. I think the scale is okay. In this case, I think I'll like the moon on the other side, so I will flip that. And with the move tool, I will adjust the sky so that it matches my scene better, so that I get a composition that I'm happy with. Maybe right about here. And then I can increase the color adjustment and also make it a little bit darker. I'll put two new layers and press OK. Then I can take my night effect folder and place it below the sky replacement and enable that. And look at the difference. It looks like I moved the sky a little too far to the left, but that's okay. Everything remains editable. So with that layer selected, I can click on the move tool and move my sky over to the right so that it matches. And what I need to do now is just make a few adjustments. For example, I can go into my night effect and then select the curves adjustment layer. And I want it to be a little bit bluer. So I'm going to go into the blue channel, click and drag up to make it more blue. And I'll go into the red channel, click and drag down to introduce cyan. And that creates that effect that you see there. This is not really a compositing tutorial, so I don't want to spend too much time on things unrelated to the sky replacement, but I'll describe what you can do to make this into a better image. First of all, you can make the windows white, blur them to create the illusion that there's light coming out of the windows. Then in the sky replacement group, create a new layer, clip it to the layer below, and paint with white along the edges of the horizon to create the illusion of light off into the distance. Using the overlay blending mode might give you better results. And now we're going to look at how you can use the sky replacement to replace the sky on videos. Go into File, Open, and find your video file. In this case, I'm going to use this london.mob file. And this is, of course, a video of London. This is what it looks like. This will work because it was shot with a tripod and the camera's not moving. Photoshop will not be able to track your sky if the camera moves. So if you have a still shot like this, you can definitely do a sky replacement. And the steps are very simple. First of all, you need to note that the sky replacement will not work on a video layer. So if I go into Edit, sky replacement, you'll see that I cannot select that, and it will also not work on a video group. See that? You cannot select that. However, this will work on a smart object, so you can right click and select convert to smart object. And just as a side note, when you have a smart object, you can still play your video that's inside of that smart object. See that? The video still plays, but most importantly, you can go into edit and you can now select the sky replacement option. Photoshop will apply the sky replacement just like it would on any photo. And you can of course select the sky that you want to use for this. So these are all the different skies that we have available. And the one that I'm going to use for this example is this sky that you see here. And I'm not going to spend too much time fine-tuning the image, but remember that you have access to the sky brush and you can subtract from the buildings and objects in your scene that shouldn't have the sky apply to them. You already know how most of these controls work, so I'll quickly adjust the sky to match the foreground and I'll press OK. And what I'm going to do now is show you how I would add the reflection to the water. Very simple. All you need to do is select your sky layer, press Ctrl J on Windows, Command J on the Mac, select the bottom layer duplicate copy, and unlink it to everything else by clicking on this unlink icon. Then delete the layer mask because we're not going to need it. And then you can press Ctrl T on Windows, Command T on the Mac, right click and flip vertical. Then drag that layer down like so. Right about here. Then you can click on the layer to commit the changes and hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and click on the layer mask icon to make a black layer mask. And you can reveal the sky over the water where it would reflect. Like so. And obviously I'm going fairly quickly here, but in your projects do spend a little more time working on the details. Then you can change the blending mode to overlay and bring down the opacity accordingly. To make it even more realistic, you can double click to the side of the layer and use the blend if options to hide the sky over the dark pixels in the water. If you click and drag on the underlying layer black point and drag it to the right, you'll see how they will start disappearing. And you can hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and click to split that black point in half and spread it to create a smooth transition between visible and invisible pixels. And maybe I'll reduce the opacity just a little bit. Now when I play the video, you can see that the reflection looks a little better, like so. At this point, I will use the adjustment layers already found in this project and maybe even Camera Raw to make my final color and tonal adjustments. When you're done, you can render the video by clicking on the flyout menu and selecting Render Video. This is how you would save your video and play it on your computer, or share it with friends, or share it on social media. And let me show you guys what my final result looks like. I spent a little more time fine-tuning the colors and fine-tuning the mask, and this is my final result. And let me know what you think about this tool in the comments. I think it's an amazing tool. It has a lot of applications and you can use it for so many things. And remember that you can download my 2 skies so you can use in your projects. If you decide to upload your final images onto Instagram, make sure that you use the hashtag PTCVids. I would love to see how you use these skies. Again, don't forget to check out my interview at the He Shoots, He Draws podcast. The link is below in the description. And if this is your first time at the Photoshop training channel, then make sure that you click on that subscribe and notification button so that you don't miss any new Photoshop tutorials. My name is Jesus Ramirez. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again in the next Photoshop tutorial.